Welcome to Losi Fanta Audio Adventures. This series is about true stories that really happened. Stories in which men twist themselves into knots, women mercilessly play out their quirks, and no one can seriously claim to have acted out of pure reason. Told with biting wit, humor, and delightful sarcasm. Enjoy listening to the things people do out of love, lust, or desire, and bitterly regret. Experiences caught between heart and body.
Emergency Psychotheatre. Repression is now called personal growth. I was just a supporting actor in the emergency shift of her Psychotheatre. She manipulated, repressed, and sold self-deception as growth and personal development. New men were always preferable to self-awareness, and mirrors that didn't applaud were treated as hostile territory. You remember that woman with the horse, right? Of course you do. Half horse owner, half hobby psychologist, with a talent for deep conversations about attachment issues, abandonment trauma, and emotional avoidance, all while a dog barks in the background and the horse farts. But when it comes to drama, absolute professional. Emotional high performance division. You know the story. We used to be together, right up until the great hay hauling and plaster project. Romantic? Sure, in a very specific, slightly ammonia-scented way. Love in rubber boots, surrounded by hoofbeats, hay, and passive-aggressive small talk in the dim light of the stable aisle. At some point, it was over, or so I thought. I was out of the equestrian soap opera, into a life with clear communication, people without four-legged obsessions, and laundry baskets free of horsehair. She naturally had a new guy immediately, a personal trainer. At least, that's what he called himself. In reality, he was more of a walking muscle tank top with built-in confidence, chronic Colombian nasal congestion, and an alcohol problem that couldn't even hide behind wine romanticism anymore. A living cocktail of biceps, beer breath, and emotional unavailability. Communication-wise, he hovered somewhere between grunting, sniffing, and silence, occasionally interrupted by philosophical gems like, "Hey, you got any of those delirium gummy bears left?" A very credible fitness influencer. I thought, great, chapter closed, archived, checked off, deleted. Yeah, right. A year and a half later, my phone rang. No number. On the other end, drama, tears, a voice trembling somewhere between a nervous breakdown and "I can't talk right now because I'm talking too much." Turns out the fitness guy, the one training more with cocaine than dumbbells, wasn't the man of her life after all. Shocking. And I, in my unwavering, slow-cooked ex-kindness, of course let myself get talked into helping. I'm not just an ex, I'm the deluxe ex. Built-in crisis hotline, emotional first aid kit, and the diplomatic skills of a UN special envoy for toxic relapses. She decided to move out and found a new apartment. So there we were again, sitting in a car. Not for a romantic road trip, but to pick up moldy furniture she'd bought off shady classified ads. You know those drives where you're not sure whether you're transporting a coffee table or hepatitis C. I was the transporter, the protector, the moral passenger seat. The man for everything. Except love, obviously. But plot twist, the breakup was merely symbolic. Emotional ownership rights were still unresolved. Mr. Muscle Shirt continued to linger somewhere between WhatsApp messages and leftover feelings. A few months later, surprise! The continuation of the same old horse opera. Drama reloaded. My phone rang, and I knew from the first vibration this wasn't going to be a casual chat about the weather. On the other end, tears, sniffing, breathing straight out of a bad telenovela, halfway between hysterical crying and audible hiccups. Half nervous breakdown, half, "I've been drinking a lot of tea and haven't eaten." And me? Right back in it. The emotional duct tape holding together what had long been falling apart. But this time, everything was different. Ha ha ha, of course it wasn't. We grew closer again. Not out of reason or a genuine new beginning, more like how you snuggle up to an old blanket on a cold evening, even though you know it's itchy, smells like the past, and will eventually leave your back exposed again. Very much like a romantic TV drama in Season 5, Episode 8. Subtext, looks, conversations full of actually and maybe. Until she suddenly disappeared again. Exit stage right, straight back to Biceps Bert. Again. Obviously. The recurring gag in leggings and a tank top. I was done. Or so I thought. At least I'd learned something. People with a psychological background don't just push buttons. They design entire instruction manuals for emotional confusion, and then press every button at once, on purpose. Smiling. After that, contact faded again. I was almost safe when the next scene arrived. An invitation to her best friend's birthday party. I was skeptical, of course. The cocaine-sniffling muscle man was like toxic background noise in her life. You never knew whether he was over or just unconscious somewhere. But she assured me, in the tone normally reserved for insurance salespeople, he's history. Really. And because I like her friend, one of the few side characters in this never-ending soap who actually has character, I went. There she stood, glowing with pride like a lottery winner suffering from relationship amnesia, announcing with the confidence of a woman who finally knows exactly what she wants emotionally for about 3.5 weeks. The fitness guy is done. Now there's a muscular physiotherapist. Not some basic sick note scribbler. No. One who can both treat injuries and do sit-ups. With tattoos. Not fully inked like Coach Coca-Lot, but enough for her to find it sexy and make her inner stable rebel giggle. And, jackpot, he lives in the same town. This is exactly what she's always wanted. Right, because love famously works best by zip code. Tiny catch. As always, just a small footnote in the credits of her emotional soap opera. At first, everything overlapped. While officially still with the sniffing muscle package, she secretly met the physio regularly. Lots of hand-holding, deep, we just get each other conversations, and probably a noticeable rise in facial moisture at close range. What exactly happened? Well, let's just say enough to notice, not enough to admit. Unfortunate that too many people noticed anyway. And because she didn't want the fitness boyfriend to realize he was slowly being demoted to a supporting role in his own relationship, he wasn't allowed to come to her place anymore. No, she only went to his. Very discreet, very subtle. The kind of subtlety where you might as well tattoo "nothing's going on" across your forehead. That's when her apartment paid for itself the first time. But don't worry, romantic chaos level 6 quickly escalated to the next stage. Oops, over again. Because the physiotherapist turned her down. In hindsight, the only person in this overheated, emotional telenovela circus with any remaining common sense. He probably realized there wasn't just a clingy fitness trainer lurking in the background, but an entire stage production titled Manipulation the Musical. And who wants to be the next contestant in her emotional escape room series? Yes, it hit her hard. Deeply. Probably because she wasn't the one doing the rejecting for once. That scratches the ego, especially if you're usually the director of the drama. For the first time ever, she dropped the conductor's baton, our self-appointed maestro of her meticulously orchestrated life opera. From the outside, flawless, perfectly coordinated, catalog ready under emotional control for beginners. People applauded, convinced she had her life under control like a Swiss watch. Behind the scenes, the backstage area was on fire. The orchestra played pop songs backward, and the violinists were fist-fighting the cellists. And suddenly, Miracle of miracles, she cracked her glossy facade just long enough to reveal the full emotional asylum dancing on stilts behind her smile. And me? I stood there, drink in hand, internally chuckling, with the serene realization that sometimes all you have to do is stand quietly nearby, and the show will dismantle itself. Of course, it happened again. We grew closer. Conversations, looks, that cursed, we just understand each other feeling. And there it was again, that moment when you realize the emotional door isn't fully closed, just ajar, with a draft. Shortly after came the classic question, "Hey, could you help me at the stable?" New stable, new setting. New temptation to volunteer as an emotional tractor. Of course I said yes. Yes, I know how stupid that sounds. Full sprint into a wall, head first. You're probably thinking, oh no, he's lost it completely. But hey, I noticed too. I even got help. I actually went to a therapist, a real one, with a couch and questions like, and how does that make you feel? Because thanks to her, I already had therapy experience. And guess what? I even know someone like that. Do you remember the woman with the horse? Yeah, the horse whisperer with the psychology background. No, absolutely not. Even my naivety has limits. Most of the time. Sometimes. Okay, fine. But this time, my brain cells were genuinely set to, please think about this. I can see you right now, putting the book or phone down, thinking, please no, he can't be serious. This guy needs to be committed. Relax. It was a joke. I swear. I wasn't with her. I went to a real professional, with diplomas and everything. She has those too. But anyway, no comment. Turns out, I'm not actually that broken. Maybe a little. Maybe too nice, naive, and excessively ex-friendly. Maybe I trusted one particular person way too much. But otherwise, pretty solid. Almost new. Back to the story. I helped. 2 days. Between hay, wood, and hormonally charged Arabians, the horse breed, not the ones with turbans, I built, mounted, carried. No complaints, no expectations. This time, her brother helped too. One of the few reliable side characters in this endless performance. Financially, I still wasn't entirely out. But no wine, no dog beds, no organic hay subscriptions on my bill. Just a few €100 in hardware supplies, screws, and boards, plus time and hope, invested in the idea that just helping might actually mean just helping this time. Emotionally? Neutral. No heart palpitations. No what if. Just functional closeness, respect, and yes, a small physical mattress surcharge, without illusion. I thought I'd learned. Then, as always, it was over again. Stable work finished. Interest gone. As soon as the last board was screwed in, I was done. As unnecessary as an empty feed bucket. Our shared stable time? A project with an expiration date. Once completed, I was sorted out. Again. Because with her, it's never enough. Once is too little. Twice is too much. Her emotional state is a broken thermostat, either ice cold or blazing inferno. Anyone who wants to play along needs divine inspiration, psychic abilities, and emotional body armor made of titanium. So she went back, again, to Mr. Muscle with the Colombian sugar sniffles, the human shaker full of testosterone and self-pity. And me? Standing there, again, with a screwdriver, remaining dignity, and emotional muscle soreness. Not hurt this time, but once again disappointed by how she treated me. But the telenovela wasn't over yet. Next twist. A few months later came the carnival one-night stand, which, as usual with her, instantly mutated from just once into a new relationship model. The guy? A wine sommelier. Not a nerd with a flavor compass, but a Cabernet with a body. Probably able to do push-ups while reciting the terroir of a 2012 Shiraz. Fun fact, for Carnival, she wore a blonde wig. And only later that night, somewhere between cheerful wine tasting and a total loss of control over reality and residual alcohol, he noticed. Well, would you look at that? You're not even blonde. Love at first sip. Welcome to post-modernity. So she proceeded, legs firmly planted, to install a boisterously boozy firmware update via her physical interface from a newly connected external add-on module. Namely, the biological data stick of a decanted wine enthusiast. Meanwhile, the recently decommissioned, but not quite yet ex-boyfriend, was assigned to babysit the bio-organic quadruped. While she filled her tank to capacity and allowed the thrust functions of the new hardware dongle, combined with the grace of 2 clearance bin remnants of dignity, to patch her straight into the next catastrophe, the freshly minted X held the leash like an emotional power bank on 2 legs and waited at home like a weak Wi-Fi signal. Technically present, rarely stable, and entirely irrelevant to what was actually happening. Back at her apartment, things were being merrily installed, updated, and every trace of self-respect was switched into energy-saving mode. Biceps Bert was downgraded to a backup copy. The kind you create just in case the update fails and you'd rather not face the system crash alone. Incidentally, this was already the second time her apartment had really paid off for her. Some properties don't yield returns. They yield anecdotes. Because, tiny catch, up until the evening before, she'd still been entertaining the muscle man dusted with marching powder. Residual emotional warmth, she called it. She'd slipped into it. Whether physically or metaphorically remained unclear. I have theories. The morning after the one-night miracle, she marched over like Napoleon on campaign, retrieved all her belongings from the muscular nasal aviator, including the dog. Old plug out, new one in. Not just metaphorically. No alone time. No gap between relationship A and Z. Transition phase? Luxury problem. Whenever her relationships briefly switched to off, the next one was already at the door, as if she had an emergency hotline for human spare parts. No coincidence, no trend, no novelty, just her pattern. One that's followed her for years, loyal as an annoying earworm. Once in, never out. Sometimes an ex, sometimes an almost boyfriend, sometimes not quite ex, or freshly conjured, like a charmingly packaged placeholder with an expiration date. There was always someone, not necessarily future material, just present. To avoid being alone, as therapy support, comforter, handyman, or express delivery mattress upgrade. She never had breaks. Before loneliness could even knock, someone else had already claimed the couch. Not relationships, not one-night stands, more like physical on-call services with flexible scheduling. Men came and went, but never late. You almost wondered if she carried a secret application form. No requirements, availability preferred. As if someone designed a shift system for emotional half availability, and she was a premium customer. A strange gray zone between familiarity and utility. Between, let's see where this goes, and maybe don't stay for breakfast. Men functioned like delivery services with loyalty programs. Fast, reliable, always arriving exactly when you thought the warehouse should be empty. Was there ever real intimacy? Well, for most, it was probably like a Kinder surprise. Some fun, some tension, rarely anything worth keeping. But this time, with the sommelier, Of course, everything was supposed to be different. Not a rebound, a fine vintage. Structure, character, bouquet. And a six-pack. Does he know what kind of relationship graveyard he's dancing on? But hey, wine fits. It was always there. With pasta. With problems. Because it's Tuesday. Sometimes in the morning. Basically always, even when the dog looked concerned. And now here I stand. No horse, no wine, no drama subscription. But with a sorted toolbox, a stack of heart lessons, and the feeling that I might have been better off becoming an electrician. At least there you know where the current comes from, and what you should never touch again. What did I learn? Some call it a relationship. I call it a psychological field study with horse manure. She analyzed emotions like a hobby therapist on espresso, just never her own. I wasn't the ex. I was the emotional janitor with a mattress surcharge, volunteering until I realized just because someone can talk about feelings doesn't mean they handle them responsibly. Maybe she has her happy ending now, with the wine expert who knows more about Bordeaux than attachment disorders. Maybe he's her soulmate, or just the next one tasked with saving her while she's already fleeing internally. This time with rosé. Realistically, new face, same movie. Still no growth. Just a wallpaper change in the relationship department. Me? I was never the partner. I was heart maintenance. Probably also her biggest trigger, because with me, everything was real. And real hurts when you prefer living in illusion. She reacts instead of reflecting, like someone ignoring the GPS and saying, I can feel where we're going. And I'm supposed to hold the map and clear the road while I'm at it. And you know what? It's not just men who are assholes. Women have dark sides too. They just package them more elegantly. While men crash into drama like elephants on roller skates, women plan like chess grandmasters with a minor in emotional exploitation. There's a script, a backup, an exit strategy, and the makeup still looks perfect while the Titanic is already underwater. Even when the relationship is dead, they often stay, not for love, but for comfort, convenience, Wi-Fi, or emotional logistics. And the moment a halfway attractive guy appears, it's, hey, you're different. Spoiler, you're not. The problem? This emotional choreography eventually wraps around their own legs. While they keep staging, they sabotage themselves. Admit it? Never. Better go down with dignity, as long as the story works. And yes, we guys carry that toxic glitter dust into the next round too. A free trial pack of baggage. No returns. But eventually, every house of cards collapses. Even the Pinterest board one. And then, popcorn out. Sit back. Watch the collapse in HD. But this time, without me. I'm done being the emotional first responder with a screwdriver. No more hard-on-call service. If it crashes again, someone else can clean up. And me, standing there, with a knowing grin. A bit cynical, but smarter. And if you get enough distance, say 3,000 emotional miles, you'll see it too. Holy shit! I really was the deluxe full-service idiot. At least I know now, because not every cry for help is an invitation. Sometimes, it's just the smoke alarm in an emotionally burning barn. And I'm not driving out there anymore. Not even with screws. Maybe I'll bring her some cups someday. Would be nice if they were all finally together. I genuinely wish her all the best. The dog, the horse, and her future ex, the sommelier with the emotional vintage of 2012. a graceful aging, or at least a cork before he completely turns. And the next guy who thinks he's the first who'll stay? Cheers to love, and to everyone who's finally learned that you don't have to answer every distress call just because you happen to own a damn cordless screwdriver. By the way, I'm becoming a physiotherapist now. And yes, she texted me again. But this time, I ignored it. This time, I'm really out. Hopefully.
Thanks for listening. Honestly, respect for sticking it out all the way to the end. I hope you had fun, or at least felt a tiny bit called out. Maybe you even thought, thank goodness that wasn't me. Don't worry, the next story is definitely coming. And next time, too, it'll be about the things people do out of love, lust, or desire, and later regret. Until next time on Psychotheatre Audio Adventures.